What's up, everybody? It's your buddy Nick Canino, and welcome back to the worst and best extravaganza. We're back to our regularly scheduled after the summer season, and now we're here to tell you our best movies of September. Indeed, your host Nick Canino, and along with me are some special guests I have with me tonight. So, gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, this is Sammy from Meyer in case in one world I do talk about movies, TVs, games, and all that stuff. Good to be here again.
And I'm Alex Meyer. I am your movie buff and Oscar watcher extraordinaire. I will be, throughout the next coming months on my channel, be posting a list of every major piece of Oscar news from the host to which films are eligible for which category.
Interesting. So since we're back, since we're back to our regularly scheduled program with the monthly like worst and best extravaganza, talk about the September movies. Now, September was a pretty good month. Weeks were a bit rocky to get through. They were a bit rocky. But once the last 3 weeks kicked in, we at least got something at least decent and at least some good movies that came out. Is what I'm saying. So before I announce my So we're gonna start with our worst. These were the movies that really made us think, "Oh God, why did we watch this movie?" But we had to do it just for you guys. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
For this month, I didn't see much bad or terrible films. I saw like one film that was like terrible and definitely one of the worst films. Yes, but I also saw like 3 films. So let's get to it. Let's get to my number 3.
Wait, what's your number 3?
Storks.
Oh, yeah, that movie had an awful trailer.
Yeah.
What was it?
Storks. That's Sammy's number 3.
Oh yeah, that movie.
The going I wasn't excited, but the film I kind of mixed expectations. I just thought the film was just a mixed bag. There were a lot of good things about it. Yeah, there were a lot of things I didn't really like about it. Animation is great. There were some moments I did laugh. I like some of the characters, especially the wolf, like Key and Peele. But I didn't like the rest of the characters. Some of the jokes really fell flat, and the story could have been interesting, but it was poorly executed.
Yeah, I remember watching the trailer and I recognized Kelsey Grammer's voice, and I thought to myself, why the hell is he in this? How much money did they have to bribe him?
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kelsey Grammer has like little kids with his wife that's like 25 years younger than him, but come on, Kelsey Grammer, you were Fraser Crane. How much money did you need for this?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, now to my number 2, which film I was honestly really interested in seeing. While I wasn't really a big fan of the original, the trailers were pretty interesting, and unfortunately, it wasn't funny. And I Blair Witch.
Oh.
What movie?
Yeah.
That movie got an audience grade of D+ from Cinema Score.
Oh.
Cinema Score rarely gives audience grades that low.
It deserves to, because, well, I'll explain it a little bit, but go ahead.
Like I said, I was looking forward to the film. I was really a big fan of the original. I just thought the original was okay. I'm still looking forward from the trailer and from the director, because I like Adam Wingard. I really love his work. From Your Next Into the Gas. I love those two films. So I'm like, which film? That could be interesting. But, yeah. The film was really disappointing. It's not a bad film to say, but it's not good either. They had a couple scary moments for like the last 15-20 minutes. Had a couple good moments. I had one kid I did like, but everything else just, what the? Yeah, if you saw Blair Witch Project, you basically know what's going to happen. I was worried that was going to happen, unfortunately, that was the case. And the jump scares, man, oh my god.
Oh, the jump scares.
Yeah. Just oh my god, like, what are you thinking? Again, not bad film, but not good either. Anyway, on to my number one worst film of September. I didn't really hate Blair Witch Story, but this film I really did not like at all. Now, I'm not saying most of them just gonna be on one of your guys' list. And I said, my worst film of September is When the Bow Breaks.
Oh God!
Oh!
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't looking good. Like, I knew the film was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. Like, damn.
Last time I checked, it had a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yeah.
And it deserves to.
and it wasn't screened for critics,
Oh, yeah.
You're a shame.
which means critics had to pay money to see it in order to review it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying much because I guess probably still, probably being the only listen I still have to be on my channel. But when I thought it's just cliched, boring, predictable, and just very just oh my god, this one considered a paycheck film.
Chris Duckman even described it best, calling When the Bow Breaks a conveyor belt movie. Meaning that the studio just made this for the money.
Yeah, and they made it on a very cheap budget. It only cost like $10 million, I think.
I think so. And that's my worst. And let's give you guys worst.
All right, I'll go next. I'll
go last.
So I have a runner-up in my overall worst. My runner-up is When the Bow Breaks. This movie. What can I say about this movie other than that it is a ripoff not only of Fatal Attraction but also The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I mean, admittedly, I did think Morris Chestnut, Regina Hall, and Jazz Sinclair were trying their best with an awful script, but you could tell they were probably. I'm willing to bet the director of this film said, "Hey, come make a movie out in Louisiana. You'll have a great time there." And they were like, "Okay," and then they get the script and they're like, "Up for this to film in Louisiana?" And they're like, "All right, let's just get through it."
Oh,
I mean, literally everything that happened in the movie, I predicted it would happen before it actually happened. You can see everything that happens a million miles away. There is nothing original in this movie.
I thought you were on twist.
I mean, even the
twist.
Oh yeah, and like the whole, the fact that, the fact that she was she made them think she was running away from her boyfriend when in reality she was planning the thing with him all along. I'm like, oh god, like I knew that was going to happen. That did not surprise me at all. And then of course when she meets her end, yes, she deserves it. It's basically this movie could have premiered on the Lifetime network. That's how predictable it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
The only reason why it's not on the Lifetime network is because you got actual film stars like Morris Chestnut and Regina Hall. If you had gotten like an actor who only does TV stuff, it would have gone straight to the Lifetime channel. I guarantee it. Because the Lifetime channel does these kinds of movies all the time. Like literally, it's like this every week they have a movie just like this, but with a different title and different actors. Yeah, so somewhat decent acting, but just a terribly written story and a lazily directed movie, and cinematography, like with when they go to the lake house. But that's really it. Like, if you thought No Good Deed and the Perfect Guy were bad, this is worse than both those movies.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. So, but that's my runner-up for September. My actual worst film of September, and I'm sure Nick will agree with me on this, is Masterminds.
I've not even seen that film.
Good. Folks, I have been dreading this film since I saw the very first trailer. When I saw the trailer, I thought to myself, what the hell is this? Why are Zach Galifianakis, Kristen Wiig, Owen Wilson, and Jason Sudeikis in this? You also got Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon in this movie as well. And it's directed by Jared Hess, who directed one of my favorite films of all time, Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, really? Nice.
I don't get how he... Yeah, I don't get how he went from Napoleon Dynamite to this. Now, of course, this film is based on a true story, apparently, and I mean, I didn't research how accurate it is to the true story. But I mean, they do post a photo in the end credits of Zach Galifianakis with the real life guy he's playing. But just, I don't know. I mean, this film is not as bad as other films I've seen this year, like Dirty Grandpa, The Brothers Grimsby, How to Be Single, The Boss, God's Not Dead 2, Ride Along 2, The Darkness, or Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. I do think those movies are worse. But
right,
what's terrible about Masterminds is there is potential for it to be like a good, or at least a guilty pleasure, but it's wasted terribly. Like Zach Galifianakis, Kristen Wiig, and Owen Wilson with the terrible script they're given. Whereas, and same with Leslie Jones. I actually liked her as well in the movie. But Jason Sudeikis, his character just felt completely wasted. Like you could have taken him out and it wouldn't have changed the movie a bit, I feel. And Kate McKinnon. Oh my god! Her role is really small, but she gives one of the most monotone performances of the year. Literally, she says all her lines like this in just this monotone voice. She's basically acting
just this monotone voice, and you know she sounds like a robot throughout the entire film.
Just give me my paycheck and let me go home.
What?
It's clear from the way she delivered her lines that she regretted signing on to the movie and she just wanted to get her paycheck as soon as possible and get the hell out of there.
And to Kate McKinnon watching, and I which I seriously doubt, but in the rare chances that you are, is money really that important to you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like this film was supposed to come out last year, but it got delayed multiple times because the studio, Relativity Media, went bankrupt. Yeah, they went bankrupt. So they've had to delay several of their movies, and what does their CEO Ryan Kavanaugh do? He takes all the good-looking movies out of like Before I Wake, which stars Jacob Tremblay and actually looks somewhat good, and he puts in all the bad movies. You have not only this, but The Disappointments Room, which bombed massively a few weeks ago.
Didn't even bother seeing the Disappointments Room, but I heard from Chris Stuckman he gave this an F.
Oh my god, yeah, that I haven't seen an epic rant from him like that since Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Me either.
But back to Mastermind. So not only are there wasted characters and pretty bad performances, but the story is just horribly edited together. It's like we don't even get to see these characters be developed. Like literally in the very beginning, Zach Galifianakis falls in love with Kristen Wiig, and she convinces him, because they're armored truck drivers who take money to and from bank vaults, and it's their job to protect it. She convinces him to steal $17 million so that way she and Kristen Wiig and Owen Wilson, because they're the ones who come up with this plan, so that they can become rich.
What?
And then what does
Oh,
what does Owen Wilson do? He tricks Kristen Wiig into sending Zach Galifianakis down to Mexico so that he can double cross him. And while he's there, Owen Wilson buys a mansion for himself and his family, and he sends an assassin, played by Jason Sudeikis, down to Mexico to kill Zach Galifianakis. And meanwhile, Kristen Wiig, she's beginning to regret her part in this, and she wants out. But then they decide to try and kill her as well. And then because Zach Galifianakis stupidly left one of the surveillance tapes behind when doing the robbery, the FBI learns about this, and Leslie Jones is the FBI agent trying to track them all down. Yeah, like if you think this story is ridiculous just by the way I'm talking about it, trust me, it is. I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, what can we have a little more like? There's no character development in here at all. They just do things, and we're just supposed to accept that as part of the story. Like they just want to rob banks just to get rich. I've seen that a million times before, and I know this is based on a true story, but still, character development. If you don't have character development, whether it's a movie, a TV show, a book, or a play, your product will fail.
not to mention cliches. Place.
What, all over the place? I didn't
I've
hear
never
that.
seen it.
Cliches.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah, like the southern redneck hillbilly cliches all over the place. Exaggerated southern accents, the hair, like with Zach Galifianakis. I don't know if that was a wig he was wearing. I'm pretty sure it is. If it is, that is literally the worst wig I have ever seen in my life. And I have worked in musicals in high school, and the wigs that we would wear for our when we were on stage as our characters, even those in a high school production looked more realistic. I'm dead serious.
And I don't blame you. I don't blame you for saying that. It's just the wig that they displayed in Masterminds. It just looks super fake.
I know. I mean, I didn't think anything could get worse than the fake long hair and beard in Ben-Hur during the rowing scene. But guess what? That makes Masterminds makes Ben-Hur's makeup look Oscar-worthy in comparison.
I've never seen it.
Just I mean it, like you're watching this, it seriously feels like you're watching an episode of Here Comes Honey Boo Boo.
Oh!
Not bad. Not bad.
Just like I said, redneck hillbilly cliches and stereotypes all over the place.
Yeah.
Good God.
I'm definitely not gonna see this film.
Yeah, no, like I have never. This movie had one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. It's such a disappointing follow-up movie for Jared Hess from Napoleon Dynamite, and people like Jeremy Jahns and John Campea. I applaud them for hating this movie as much as they did. John Campea said it's one of the worst movies he's seen in recent years, and Jeremy Jahns rated it dog shit.
And I applaud them for that.
Yeah, so I can only imagine what Jerome will think if he watches this movie. If he'll hate, I hope he hates it as much as them.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he will. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, wait. Okay, one more scene I need to talk about. There's one scene that's one of the worst scenes of the year. Zach Galifianakis, when he goes to Mexico with some of the stolen money, he goes to this taco stand and he eats all these tacos. He's in the pool and he gets diarrhea.
Wait, what?
Yes. Oh. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm supposed to find this funny? That's disgusting.
That is just disgusting. It's like it's almost as disgusting as the elephant scene from the Brothers Grimsby.
Oh God. Oh God, no.
Yeah.
That scene was traumatizing.
It was traumatizing. I agree.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I went wrong with this movie. I really don't. I don't know if it started out well, or I don't know if they honestly thought they were making a good movie and they had no problems, or if there was a lot of studio interference. But whatever happened, this is a step back. I mean, Zach Galifianakis, he had Birdman. Kristen Wiig recently had The Martian. Owen Wilson recently had Hotel. Man, after those movies, it's a shame this now has to be on their resume too.
Agreed.
All right, on to you, Nick.
Okay. Now before I begin with my 3 of the worst movies I've seen this September, here we go. I have 5 dishonorable mentions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It's just like I said. That makes it 8 movies in total. 3 movies for the worst. For the dishonorable mention. All right, my first one is at least the most tolerable I've seen in September. Even though I didn't like this movie, it was at least better than some of the other movies I've seen this month, and that movie goes to Mr. Church.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the basic consensus I've heard about that film is Eddie Murphy's performance is great, but the story itself is cheesy.
It is. Eddie Murphy does give out a fantastic performance. He does redeem himself from 4 years ago when 1,000 Words came. She said that was just awful. Redeemed himself in Mr. Church. Thankfully, he redeems himself in Mr. Church. All right, my next is I'll mention. I know you're interested in seeing this one, but I think it turns. I think when I saw this movie, I saw this online. Couldn't believe. Like I was first excited at first because of this actress, but it's just I couldn't believe how pretentious and straight up Oscar bait trash this movie was. It's The Dressmaker.
Oh.
That comes to my theater next week, actually.
Mm.
And I'm mainly interested in seeing it just because of Kate Winslet, because she's one of my all-time favorite actresses.
Kate Winslet is fantastic in this movie, and so are the three other actors, which are Judy Davis, Liam Hemsworth, and Hugo Weaving. And the soundtrack is great, and the cinematography is very well shot, and so is the costume designs are fantastic. But the problem with this movie is that it is predictable as hell.
I will admit, when I had to watch the trailer, the scene where Liam Hemsworth is shirtless, I'm like, why? We don't need to see him shirtless. How desperate are you to get the ladies going, ooh?
Liam Hemsworth shirtless.
I mean, when I went to see The Longest Ride, all the women in the theater were oohing and eyeing at Scott Eastwood when he was shirtless.
Oh, brother!
They were going, ooh, yeah, mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, indeed.
Okay, continuing on my dishonorable mentions. This movie I didn't understand the hype for this one. I understand if you enjoyed this movie, if you were excited for this movie and were disappointed, but I just couldn't stand the hype. I just couldn't see what the hype was about for this movie. It's Morgan.
Yeah, I've been hearing mixed things about it. People said it was either disappointing or okay, and I was watching it and I thought, okay, this is actually somewhat decent. But then it felt, I don't know, it felt undeveloped. It felt like it felt like we were watching a rough draft of a movie rather than the final finished product.
Right. You know what the huge problem with Morgan is? The movie was really boring.
Imagine with that.
That's what the problem was.
Yeah.
My next dishonorable mention, Sammy had it in his worst, Blair Witch. Adam Wingard, what were you thinking? You did the guest and you're next. You're better than this, man. You are better than this.
Yep.
My last dishonorable mention, another good director who just made the worst movie of his career. Kevin Smith's Yoga Hosers.
Oh, that film.
In the thumbnail for his review on his channel, Brad Jones, he did exactly what you were doing, Nick. He had his face in his hands like this, which means he must have really hated that movie.
It's what Kevin Smith, right?
It's just like
Kevin Smith.
And Brad Jones described this movie perfectly. It's like if Woody Allen did a movie, and it sucks.
So it's Kevin. Wow. So and I know, and I know the two main girls are played by Johnny Depp and Kevin Smith's daughters.
I describe them as Olsen twin wannabes.
How bad are their fake Canadian accents?
They're so bad to a point where you just want to go up to the screen and just shut their mouths off.
Do they really over exaggerate the OU words like out? Do they say like out?
Don't even get me started on that.
And don't these
apparently we're supposed to get one more movie from the True North trilogy, which is Moose Jaws.
Moose Jaws?
Moose Jaws. It's supposed to be like Jaws, but with mooses. Kevin Smith, I hope after the True North trilogy, you go back to do something really good. Just, please, I beg you, do not do a movie like this ever again. After Moose Jaws, do not do a movie like this ever again. Please. Jacoby just commented on this. So they're pretty much crashing Eddie. Yes, they are.
Wow. So wait, of the two girls, which one is more annoying, Johnny Depp's daughter or Kevin Smith's daughter?
They're both annoying. They're both annoying. It's just it's a hard competition between the two of those because
They like to put American accents. They like to say hashtag selfie. Let's take a selfie. Take a selfie.
Don't they do selfies don't they take selfies while doing yoga?
oh my god! Oh my god! Let's move on before I go insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about yoga hoses anymore. I'm done. All right. Now for the top 3 worst movies I've seen.
Interesting.
And coming in at number 3, Alex Meyer just had this movie on his worst. By the way, as I'm going to explain this, these 3 movies you're about to hear are the ones I gave a 0 out of 5 stars to.
Oh. Damn.
At number 3, Alex Meyer had it at his worst. I mean, as his worst, and I'm in agreement with him. Masterminds, or as I call it, crapsterminds.
Yeah.
This movie, this piece of shit, is one of the worst movies I've seen this year. As a film that is based on the real robbery event that took place in North Carolina in 1997, it's not only an insult to people watching this, but it is one of the most mean-spirited, depressing, unrealistic, and completely unfunny films I've ever seen this year.
One of the film critics from Collider who wrote a written review, he called it offensive to poor people.
It is!
Yeah. I mean, it basically it basically stereotypes anyone who lives in a trailer park as like a dumb, greedy redneck.
Absolutely nothing positive I have with this movie. Plot? What plot? The script, atrocious. Direction that Jared has took with this movie, horrendous. And not only was the acting terrible, but the rest of the acting, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Not only did you waste Zach Galifianakis, Owen Wilson, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, and Jason Sudeikis in this movie, but my God, speaking of the rest of the acting being terrible, Kate McKinnon. If people thought her performance in Ghostbusters was bad, this makes her performance in Ghostbusters look like Citizen Kane.
Well, not bad.
Yeah, because like I said, Kate McKinnon, she delivers her lines in such a monotone voice. It's obvious she doesn't want to be in the movie, and that she's just thinking, You can let me go home. I want out.
Let me just say this. Her performance in this movie is worse than Mila Kunis' performance in Jupiter Ascending.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, this movie makes Jupiter Ascending look Oscar worthy.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
I blame these guys for that film.
Anyway, as I was saying.
One scene I forgot to talk about that really annoyed me. Well, two scenes actually. When Kristen Wiig is trying to force her boss to fire her by like groping Zach Galifianakis, I'm like, what is that? What? That is not funny, people. Why would they think that was funny?
I have no fucking clue.
And the other scene, the fight between Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon in the store, the clothing store, where they like dismember mannequins and hurl them at each other. I mean, that fight was so poorly choreographed.
Exactly. Just God, this movie. The soundtrack was terrible. The cinematography was lazy. The editing was all over the place. The pacing was horrendous. This movie was 93 minutes long, and yet it felt like 4 goddamn hours long. It was a movie that kept on going and going and going and going and going and going. I'm just like, stop it! Just stop! Please!
Man.
I yawned several times in the theater, and I had to check my phone like 2 or 3 times.
You know, I don't blame you for checking your phone, because this movie's a piece of shit. And not only were there cliches all over the place, but my God, the action they took in this movie were some constructed action scenes I've seen this year. And oh, by the way, the jokes, all the jokes in this movie were vile, disgusting, annoying, and not funny at all. Overall judgment. Masterminds, not only does it not work as a movie based on real robbery events that took place in North Carolina in 1997, but it's an insult to anybody who sees this. And it's not only Jared Hess's worst movie he's ever done in his career, but it's one of the most idiotic, mean-spirited, depressing, unrealistic, and completely unfunny films I've ever seen this year. And that's why Masterminds deserves its number 3 spot. And it's one of the worst movies I've seen this year. Okay, number two. No, I did remember this from a couple years ago. I remember this guy named the Mysterious Mr. Enter. He's like an animated reviewer, and whenever he reviews bad modern SpongeBob episodes, he says that every time there's a SpongeBob episode that starts in a Krusty Krab, it's gonna suck. And I'm saying this for this movie. We get a Fatal Attraction ripoff. This movie, I think this movie would suck balls, and guess what happened when I saw it? I was right. And at number 2, this movie is well known as Great, aka When the Shit Hits the Fan. It's just like No Good Deed and The Perfect Guy. Not only were the studios behind this, Screen Gems, responsible for not screening this film for critics, but when the bell breaks, as Alex Meyer stated, it's not only a rip-off to Fatal Attraction off of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I mean, yes, Morris Chestnut and Virginia Hall did try in this movie, but I would rather see them in a better movie than this. Something positive I have with the film. As I said, I'd rather see Morris Chestnut and Virginia Hall in a better film than this.
Like I said, they probably only did this movie because they were probably offered good money and probably because it was being shot in Louisiana.
Green Gems is what I call the conveyor belt of Fatal Attraction rip-offs. The plot is absolutely cliched as hell. The script was terrible. The direction by John Sasser. He's the guy that did 24. There was another film that he directed that came out earlier this year. But I'll worry about that later. The actors in this movie, they just didn't try. Morris Chestnut, Virginia Hall, and Jazz Sinclair. Again, Morris Chestnut and Virginia Hall, two good actors. I just would rather see them in a better film than When the Bow Breaks. They just did it just for their paycheck. Not to mention the musical score was boring and generic. The cinematography was terrible. The editing was all over the place. The pacing was awful. This was a 103-minute film, and it felt like 3.5 hours long. Horrendous. That's how horrendous the pacing was. Yeah. And not to mention, cliches all over the place.
I really started on cliches.
Overall, if you've seen Fatal Attraction and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, you've pretty much seen what they're going to do When the Bow Breaks. We're all seeing them. Not only is When the Bow Breaks a ripoff of Fatal Attraction and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, but it's generic, boring, cliched, and feels like a made-for-TV movie that should have premiered on the Lifetime movie network. But because they had Morris Chestnut, Virginia Hall, and Jazz Sinclair in it, they just to say, hey, let's put these three actresses in there and just not screen the film for critics and make it like a ripoff of Fatal Attraction and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Good idea, Soda. Good idea. Cha-ching!
And the sad thing is, this movie's made its budget back because it only cost $10 million.
It's obvious. It's obvious. But as bad as When the Bow Breaks, when the Bow Breaks, aka when the shit hits the fan, and Masterminds, aka Cracksterminds, is this movie was easily my pick of the worst of September, because this movie not only drove me insane, but it made me feel uncomfortable, and I just wanted to shut this movie off as soon as I saw this online. And the worst movie I've seen this September, and this is one of the worst movies I've seen this year, you know what, I'm going to say this. It's tied with Ice Age Collision Course and Norm of the North as the worst animated film of the year.
Oh.
The Wild Life.
Oh
AKA the shit life. This movie. What were these guys thinking when they made this movie? Besides the money, it's just the most generic, idiotic, depressing, and revolting animated films I've ever seen this year. Yes, Jacoby. Yes. Yes. This is the worst film I've seen this September. Are you even guys surprised? Are you even guys surprised that this was my worst movie of September?
No, because I saw the trailer for this in theaters and I thought to myself, what the hell is this? This looks terrible.
It's like it's supposed to be like Robinson Crusoe, but with animals. That's like doing Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's like doing an animated film of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Except if it's hard for me to describe this movie right now, but if you like cross out the lambs, Mary had a tiger. And that's what the wildlife is.
Like a lot of modern day songs in this movie. Because I thought I heard them in the trailer. I'm like, why?
Oh my god.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's fine to retell classic stories for kids, but don't take the tale of Robinson Crusoe and just dumb it down and rewrite it so that 3-year-olds will enjoy it.
It's exactly. You know, what am I hearing?
I'm not sure. I hear it too, but it's not coming from my end.
Not for mine either.
Alright.
Anyway, continuing on with this movie. Yeah, there was nothing redeeming in this movie whatsoever. The plot was very idiotic and predictable. The animation is one of the worst I've seen this year. The script was horrendously written. One of the worst scripts of the year. The direction was horrendous. The voice acting was awful. The characters in the wildlife are paper thin, unlikable, and generic. The musical score was horrendous. The editing was all over the place. The pacing was horrendous. This was a 90-minute film, and it felt like 4 hours long, and all the jokes felt very flat. And there were a lot of cliches in this movie as well. So, overall, the wildlife was horrendous. It's one of the most idiotic, depressing, and revolting animated films I've seen this year, and this is easily one of the very worst movies I've seen this year. It's the worst movie I've seen this September. No exceptions.
All right. Now, Sammy, it's your time for your best.
I'll be right back, guys. I just gotta go get something to drink. Right, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, not too many best films with him. How much I think they'll Horizon for, but oh well. I have three films I consider to be the best films. My number 3 favorite film of September is Sully.
Was what?
Sully.
Oh. Really good movie.
Yeah, it's really great. Great movie. That's actually really interesting because I do love Tom Hanks. He's my favorite actor of all time. I do love Clint Eastwood's work. Me personally, you can be kind of hit or miss depending on the film. And the film was really great. I like some kind of lot more than others. I see my people had some problems, but I still really love it. Tom Hanks was fantastic, and Harrison was fantastic. Actually fantastic. I was really invested into the story of the film. My film has some gorgeous cinematography and interesting story. The only issues I have that I thought there a few times where I thought they did some scenes out out of order about Sully's life. I thought really
Right.
yeah. But overall, I really love this film, nonetheless. And on to my number two. Now, this is also the biggest surprise of the year. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh my god, not another Crash Bandicoot sequel. That's really what I thought when I saw the trailer for this film. But I ended up actually really loving this film. And yes, it's Bridget Jones' Baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick's back.
Yes.
So Sammy's number 3 is Sully, and his number 2, which you just started talking about, and he says it's his most surprising film of the year, is Bridget Jones's Baby.
I was very surprised by that movie.
Yeah. Like I said, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh my god, not another Crash Bandicoot. Because I mean, I actually really love the Bridget Jones films. So the first one I do adore. The second one I do adore, but in a guilty pleasure just have a way. I know the film's bad, but I still love them less. And when I saw, when I saw the film, I was like, oh crap, why? Especially after 12 years after the last film. But when I saw it, I was like, wow. And this is really surprising. Like, I really love this film. And I love the performances from Renee Zellweger. Like, she definitely gives American performances. Bridget Jones, Colin Firth is a good performance. Patrick Dempsey gets a good performance. Not everybody gets a good performance in this film. I was laughing constantly throughout the film, like constantly, like damn. Because again, my thought train was like, I thought I was gonna laugh once, not once. I ended up laughing constantly. I laughed out loud a lot of times out the film. The only small issues I had is that what everything was good. I thought the action was kind of off and on. It does really did slow down a couple parts, and some of the jokes do not hit. Overall, this is a really great and awesome film. I definitely actually recommend it. Now on to my number one, and this is film I actually just saw today. Okay, so and definitely going to be on my favorite films of the year. My favorite film of September is The Magnificent Seven.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, I literally just saw the film today. Like, my god, this film was awesome. I'm not saying much, there's something that's my review, but I'm gonna say it was fantastic. Definitely one of the much better westerns in recent years. The performances were all top notch. Film was just a ton of man. I thought Such Beyond was the most intense film I've seen. This film is definitely the most intense film I've seen this year, without a doubt. But, I'm gonna say Magnificent Seven is my favorite film of September.
Okay.
All right, for me, my runner-up film is one of the most underrated films of the year, in my opinion. It's also one of the best book-to-film adaptations I've seen in a while, probably since Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, in terms of being a great movie that's very, very faithful to the story. The Light Between
I know what it
Oceans.
is. Yeah, that movie was really good. It was really good. I also find that underrated as well.
Yeah, because I like it, but I really like as much as you guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's understandable. I mean, I know there are some people who feel who think it's too much like a Nicholas Sparks story, but let me tell you, The Light Between Oceans is the kind of story that Nicholas Sparks should be writing. because while there are certainly a lot of elements you see in a Nicholas Sparks story, like a love story, beautiful cinematography, the ocean, a tragic backstory, at least these characters are well developed, and at least they're not like these perfect people who are just perfect. These characters actually have flaws. These characters actually make some terrible decisions. These characters have to face the consequences.
Yeah, I can with that. My thoughts on the best part of the film.
And in The Light Between Oceans, the performances are excellent. The story is really good. I'd say in terms of faithfulness to the book, this movie is about 95% faithful. There's just which is rare to be faithful that much. But the story is really good. The cinematography is absolutely beautiful. Photography of the year, in my opinion, by Adam Arkapaw. Those shots, especially of the ocean, are stunning. And the score by Alexander Desplat, who's my second favorite film composer of all time, is my favorite score of the year so far.
Nice.
I'm not gonna lie, it was a fantastic score and one of my favorites of the year.
I can make that.
Yeah. So I mean, this will probably be in my honorable mentions at the end of the year rather than in my top 10. But if you're looking for a film that of Michael Fassbender, Alicia Vikander, or Rachel Weisz, then you should really see this film. If it's not in theaters, please watch it on DVD or rent it off of iTunes when you can, because it's worth the watch. And want to see the type of movie that Nicholas Sparks should be making, it's this one. So that's all I really have to say about The Light Between Oceans. But my favorite film of September is Sully.
Oh.
I have it as well.
Wow. I heard a lot of things about this movie going in, but even I was amazed at what I saw. Like it was better than I thought it would be. Like Tom Hanks as Sully, absolutely perfect casting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when you're watching him on screen, you don't feel you're watching Tom Hanks. You feel as if you're actually watching the real Sully play himself.
Right.
And the way this movie works, it's not just a simple portrayal of the crash and what happens after it. You know, for those of you who don't know, this movie's about Chelsea Sullenberger, best known as Sully, who had to crash his plane on the Hudson River after some birds flew into the engine, and all passengers miraculously survived the crash. What this movie does is it goes back and forth between the investigation of the crash and the crash itself. So it flip-flops back and forth. Now, in lesser hands, that may not have worked, but with Tom Hanks starring and Clint Eastwood directing, it works really, really well. Some people...
Yes, it does.
And this is a film I think all people can agree Clint Eastwood did a good job on. I know people are very divided over American Sniper. Some think it's a masterpiece. Some think it's really overrated. But Sully, I think, is
again, if you guys know me, I just thought American Sniper was just overrated. It's decent, but it's rated, and I don't think it deserved the Best Picture nomination. But this Sully movie redeemed Clint Eastwood from American Sniper.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Clint Eastwood, he's 86 years old, I think, and for an 86-year-old to pull off a movie like this,
that is amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well done, man. Well done.
But not only did Clint Eastwood do a great job directing and Tom Hanks do a great job as Sully, but there are also some great actors in the supporting cast. Aaron Eckhart was really funny as Sully's co-pilot. And Gunn was good as the woman on the National Transportation Safety Board investigating the crash, and Laura Linney, even though she's only on screen a short amount of time as Sully's wife and we only see her on the phone with him, she's really good as well. But the big star of this movie, and I hope it gets some Oscar recognition, is the visual effects. This is how you do
Yeah.
This is how you do visual effects right when you portray a plane crash. This,
Exactly.
Sully, The Aviator, and Flight, those three films are easily the best films to have great visual effects in portraying a plane crash.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like the scenes where where they're crashing into the river and where they're trying to get all the passengers out. That was some of the most intense, riveting filmmaking I've seen all year. And like, I mean, it felt so realistic. You felt as if you were watching the actual crash from 2009 happen before your eyes. Like,
Right.
like as I watched it all unfold, never once did it look fake or look extremely obvious in terms of CGI.
Mm-hmm.
So the visual effects team to this movie, bravo! You are the top of your craft here.
Exactly.
And also one great thing they did at the end, and this I thought was especially heartwarming. At the end, they show the real Captain Sully as well as several of the passengers from that flight reuniting together.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is a great film about how someone ends up becoming a hero in a very unexpected situation, and it shows how keeping your cool and just following your instinct is always the best thing to do in a disaster like this.
Right.
And that is why Sully is my favorite film of September.
And I'll talk about that very soon. I'll talk about that very soon about Sully. So so before we get to 3 of the best movies I've seen this September, I have 6 honorable mentions. And here they are. The independent film Kicks. Bridget Jones's Baby, one of the biggest surprises of the year.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated films of the year, The Light Between Oceans. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Yeah, film.
I'll probably be seeing that next week sometime.
Amazing.
You should. It's really good.
Right this weekend, it depends.
My next one, The Magnificent Seven.
Mm-hmm.
Really good movie. Very good movie. I had a lot of fun with this movie. My last honorable mention. This is a chess movie, and it's one of the most riveting stories about chess I've seen this year. It's open nationwide today. I saw it a couple days ago. Queen of Katwe.
Oh yeah, I really want to see that because I'm very interested in to see Lupita Nyong'o in that movie.
And so rightfully you should, because Lupita Nyong'o gives out one of the best performances of the year, and David Oyelowo is also fantastic in this movie.
Do you think Lupita Nyong'o should get another Oscar nomination?
Oh, she was fantastic though in that movie. But even if she does get a nomination, I think it would be cool.
Okay.
Okay. Now we get to the three best movies I've seen this September. And boy, this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Okay. My third favorite movie of September is what is quite possibly my most underrated film of the year. I talked about this film many times on Facebook, many times. As soon as I saw this movie, I knew that this was going to be one of the most heartwarming movies I would see this year. But what I didn't understand was that it had a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't understand how this has that rating.
Apparently, some people feel the movie is too cheesy.
Quite possibly. Some have called it cliche, some have called it predictable, but I think I think this movie stands out as one of the most underrated films I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. And
We have none other than John Krasinski's The Hollers.
I'll admit, when I saw the trailer, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't like the trailer either. The trailer did look like it was going to be cheesy. But then I saw the TV spot, and the TV spot was a bit better than I thought it was going to be. Really hoping that this film would actually be good when I went and saw this movie. And what I got was one of the most heartwarming movies of the year. I really mean it. It's just John Krasinski, who directed this movie, and he also acted in this movie. He wanted to make this movie about like he wanted to make a Terms of Endearment movie for a new generation. Task to do nowadays, because Terms of Endearment is considered by some people to be one of the greatest movies they've ever seen.
Right, and it won the
John Krasinski.
Go ahead.
What?
I was just
All right,
going to say Terms of Endearment won the Oscar for Best Picture.
It did. And I actually did see Terms of Endearment, and Terms of Endearment is one of my favorite movies of all time. And The Hollers, I gotta say, going into this movie, I had very mixed thoughts, and coming out of the movie, this movie made me feel a lot of happiness and made me feel something different, like time I've ever experienced happiness and sadness at the same time. Especially, I'll get to that in a little bit in my positives. My only flaw I did have with the film is that they do rely on some indie cliche, like in some parts, like you do see in the trailer, they do it in this movie, and it does seem familiar. It does go for those cliches, but other than that, that was the only flaw I had with the film. So here's the thing that didn't make any sense. Let me get this straight. Storts has positive reviews. Bad Moms has positive reviews. But The Hollers has some mixed and negative reviews? Why?
Well, I mean, like you said, if it's trying to be a modern day Terms of Endearment, maybe critics feel that it can't possibly be better than the original Terms of Endearment, and therefore there's no point in trying to make another version of it.
Right. I understand. Like, but let's face it. Terms of Endearment. Let's face it. This movie isn't as like spectacular as I would say Terms of Endearment. That movie blew me away. It made me feel. Actually, made me feel joy and sadness at the same time, and I'll explain that just right now. The story was an interesting story. Jim Strauss was I thought it was well written, and this was directed by John Krasinski, and his direction he took with this movie was absolutely very, very good. It was fantastic. It's terrific. Charlie Day, Anna Kendrick, Josh Groban, John Krasinski, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead are all great in this movie. But the two in this movie were Richard Jenkins and Margot Martindale.
Okay.
Not only did they deliver one of the best performances of the year, in this movie was fantastic. Track is absolutely one of the best I've heard this year. The cinematography is very well shot. It's well edited, well paced. The humor. When I said joy and sadness, the joy was that there's a lot of great humor in this movie. And yes, you do see some of the stuff that in the trailers, but here's the thing. The things that he did show in the trailers, I was actually laughing. I was actually laughing, and that's rare for me nowadays. And when I said sadness, I'm not ashamed to admit that I did shed some tears. This is like Florence Foster Jenkins. I was laughing. I laughed and cried in that film. In the hollers, it was the same thing for me. It was the same thing when I experienced. It was the same experience I had with Florence Foster Jenkins. I laughed, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm not ashamed. There's some very emotional moments in this movie. Very emotional moments. Especially Margot Martindale. At her performance. No. Her performance made her character made me feel for her, and what I also loved about this movie was how real it felt. Like, it felt realistic. Hollers is officially my most underrated film of the year, since it is one of the most uplifting, funny, emotional, and riveting films I've seen this year. Now I have to think about this. I have to think about if this will be in my year-end list. If it is, it will be my honorable mentions. That's all I'm going to say.
Again.
We'll have to wait and see when we do our best of 2016 list next year. Let's see. And that's why The Hollers is number 3. You should. It's really good.
Okay.
So damn good. And number 2 is a true. Now these next 2 are true story films, and both of them are drama films. 2 is the movie that just got a release today. I saw it yesterday, and I saw it last night. It got my taste. It got the bad taste out of Masterminds out of my mouth. And that movie is Deepwater Horizon.
It was?
Deepwater Horizon.
Oh. I really want to see that film.
It just came out today.
Yeah.
I'll see that film soon.
You should see it, Sammy.
I don't want to see it. The movie's getting a lot of positive reviews. The movie's just
So, I did a review of this today. If you guys saw my review, Deepwater Horizon. It's based on the oil rig incident and the explosion at Deep place in 2010, and it is absolutely one of the most intense, heart-pounding, and realistic films based on a true, either inspired or based on a true story I've seen this year.
That's a good thing.
Now, as for issues with the film, there's a few times at the beginning of the film where it did, well, actually a couple times, but the film did slow down in a couple parts. But other than that, well, I can understand why, because they have to take the time to set up the characters, the story, and it's going to be that's going on before the disaster hits. And they did it very well in this movie. Movies I've seen from the other like from decades ago. It's, I'll explain that on another podcast. I'll explain that later. Very interesting and realistic story. The script was well written. The direction by Peter Berg is one of the best directions I've seen this year. The acting was terrific. Mark Wahlberg gives out one of the best performances I've seen this year. And Kate Hudson, for the first time in years, is absolutely terrific in this movie. Absolutely redeems herself from Mother's Day.
That's good.
And some other bad movies that she was in from like years ago. And not only was she great in this movie, but Kurt Russell is also fantastic in this movie. And same thing with John Malkovich.
Yeah, John Malkovich always plays the villain in the movie. Doesn't he play a BP executive here?
Yes. Yes, and he's fantastic in this movie.
What about Dylan O'Brien and Gina Rodriguez?
Oh yeah, they were really good in this movie, without a question.
That's good.
The character development was very well done. The musical score by Steve Jablonsky. Jablonsky, again, mispronunciation if I didn't correct it. If I didn't pronounce it correctly.
I think you pronounced it correctly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was very well composed. The cinematography was great. The editing was very good. 98% of the pacing was fantastic. And what I also loved about this movie was that there was some very intense and heart-pounding action scenes in it that knocked me flat.
Do you think the film should get Oscar nominations for sound editing and sound mixing?
Yes.
Wow.
And what I also loved about this movie was that there was some very good humor in it, and especially I don't want to spoil it, but if you do see the, I don't even know what I'm saying. But one more thing I forgot to mention: the ending is one of the most emotional endings I've seen this year. So, my final judgment: Deepwater Horizon is one of the most intense, heart-pounding, and realistic films inspired by a true story about the Deepwater Horizon explosion and oil rig incident that took place in 2010 I've ever seen in a film this year. And I got to think about this, just like The Hollers. This will be on my year-end list, but we will see. We will see, because I really, really love this film very much, and I can't wait for Peter Berg's other film that he's coming out with, Patriots Day.
Oh yeah, where he also teams up again with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. Definitely looking forward to that. Yeah. Again, Peter Berg, just like in Lone Survivor, well done, man. Well done. And that's why it is my second favorite film of September. But as much as I enjoyed The Hollers and Deepwater Horizon, nothing could compare to the best movie I've seen this September. I have the same film as Alex does. My favorite film of September, and this is one of the best movies I've seen this year. Clint Eastwood's Sully. Sully is one of the best movies I've seen this year. It is one of the most It is one of the most heart-pounding and riveting films I've ever seen this year. Like heart-pounding, riveting, and realistic is what I'm calling this film. As for issues with the film, I guess the only nitpick I did have with the film was that, and I did see this movie. I did see this movie when it first came out. But there was that one. There were actually a couple flashback sequences that did feel out of place. I felt. I did feel that they could have like placed it in order. But other than that, though, with the film, the story was very realistic and very interesting. The script is fantastic. The direction that Clint Eastwood took with this movie is one of the best directions of the year. Without a question. And Tom Hanks absolutely delivers one of the best performances I've seen this year.
Thank you.
Watching this film and watching his performance, and the way that he like performed and what he had to do in this movie, I was like, he looks like Chesley. He looks like Sully because of the realism that this movie took. Yeah, and the rest of the acting was fantastic, including Aaron Eckhart, who absolutely delivers one of the best supporting performances of the year. And Laura Linney, even though you don't see her that much in this movie, she is still fantastic in this movie, without a doubt. The musical score is fantastic. Sorry about that. Absolutely one of the most well shot films I've seen this year. It's well edited. It's just well. And what I also really loved about this movie was that good humor in it as well. Very good humor in it. And the sequences, the airplane sequences, especially in this one scene where I won't spoil what happens, but all I can say this way, folks. If you've seen the real events that took place in 2009, get ready to be blown away by this.
Yeah, and that scene is proof why this movie should be seen on the big screen.
Exactly. It's one of the best visual effects I've seen this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, I really enjoyed the ending as well. So anyway, finishing up, Sully is pounding realistic and riveting films I've seen this year. And this is definitely one of Clint Eastwood's best films he's done in a while. And this is indeed one of the best movies I've seen this year. And it will, even if it doesn't make my top 20 at the end of the year, it will at least be in my honorable mentions. Sully is my favorite film of September.
Same here.
So, yeah, what a coincidence, because you and I have the same movie as our September. So that's going to do it for the worst and best films of September. Again, special thanks to Alex, Meyer, and to Sammy for joining us. Hopefully, we'll get back to our we'll get back to our mojo next month when we do our worst and best films of October, which I'm going to do something special for the worst and best films of October. I'm actually going to call it Trick and Treats of October.
Oh.
Tricks being the worst, the best.
Oh,
Cool.
cool.
So, would you guys like to say your goodbyes?
Sammy Wolf here. It's good to be here again. I'll see you next time. Peace.
And I'm Alex Meyer. It's great to be here again. I'll see you guys next month. Bye.
And I'm Nick Canino, and until my reviews for October, have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.